On last week's episode, we discussed Tony Scott's directorial debut, The Hunger. The stylish and artistic David Bowie, Catherine Deneuve, Susan Sarandon helmed vampire love triangle film released in 1983. We now move on to probably the best-known vampire movie of the 80s, Joel Schumacher's 1987 horror comedy, The Lost Boys. After The Lost Boys of Peter Pan. The Lost Boys follows a group of teenage vampires living in Santa Carla, a barely disguised Santa Cruz, who never grow up and never age as long as they keep feeding.
Now you know what you are. You'll never grow old, Michael. And you'll never die. But you must feed.
The parallel to The Hunger is, of course, striking, with the notion of aging and youth at the center of the film. However, unlike The Hunger, whose promise of everlasting youth is snatched away from the half-vampires when they suddenly age, the vampires of the Lost Boys are able to just keep running around, making Santa Carla the murder capital of the country. The other parallel to The Hunger is that in order to turn into a vampire, the unwitting convert must drink from a vampire's blood, whereas vampires consume human blood in order to feed. The Lost Boys has an incredible ensemble cast grabbed from 80s pop culture. Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, Alex Winter, Jamie Gertz, Dianne Wiest, Barnard Hughes is the grandfather, and Edward Herrmann, whose voice has narrated like half the audiobooks I've listened to recently. Michael Emerson, played by Jason Patric, and his little brother Sammy, played by Corey Haim, move with their mom and dog Nanook to Santa Carla after their parents' divorce to live with their eccentric hippie grandfather. Although it looks like a fun place to grow up, with cool beaches and a boardwalk seemingly close to the house, they're informed that Santa Carla is the murder star, played by Jamie Gertz, who won't stop staring at him. Michael is unknowingly brought deep into the epicenter of the city's vampire problem, and turned by David, played charismatically by Kiefer Sutherland, into a half-vampire, needing only to feast on human blood to finally turn.
You're a pirate, man.
That would explain everything. Come on.
A loose, dark, vampiric take on Peter Pan, but obviously evil Peter Pan. The original screenplay was actually written by first-time screenwriters. James Jeremias, a grip who had been making a living in Hollywood, read Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and had an idea. One of Anne Rice's vampires was a 200-year-old vampire stuck in a 12-year-old girl's body. James Jeremias thought about one of his favorite stories, J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, and thought, what if Peter Pan had been a vampire? He never grew up, he could fly, and he only came out at night. James and his childhood friend Janice Fisher wrote their screenplay The Lost Boys around that premise. And in February 1985, the rights were purchased for $400,000. Originally, Richard Donner, who would shortly go on to direct Shane Black's first screenplay, Lethal Weapon, was slated to direct. The screenplay had also been inspired by Richard Donner's successful last film, The Goonies, but the screenplay just wasn't working for him. Even after Jeffrey Boehm, a staff writer for Warner Brothers, touched up and reworked the screenplay. Eventually, Richard Donner left the project to direct Lethal Weapon, but stayed on as a producer. Hewler-Donner, the production partnership Donner had with his wife, kept searching for a director. They'd also produced St. Elmo's Fire, which is where they met Joel Schumacher. After a bunch of convincing, Schumacher realized what wasn't working. The screenplay had all the characters as young kids. It was a children's script. Schumacher decided they should all be teenagers, and he decided to add some sex to the mix. He also made it a black comedy. The mix of sexuality and comedy and style would fill the hole that Richard Donner had felt. Sex courses through The Lost Boys, not just Michael's attraction to the half-vampire star, but as has been continually pointed out, his queer-coded attraction to Kiefer Sutherland's David, who literally tries to turn him. Joel Schumacher's attachment to Jason Patric as the lead, and Jason Patric's extreme reluctance to be in the movie, led to Schumacher giving Jason Patric and the entire cast an unprecedented amount of creative input, including allowing Jason to cast his former Solar Babies co-star Jamie Gertz as star. Besides Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, Jamie Gertz, and Corey Feldman, who had been in the Goonies, Gremlins, and Stand By Me at this point, Joel Schumacher chose to largely cast unknown young actors for the teenage parts.
But it was more that I spent a lot of time with Joel because he tried to get me in the movie for a long time. And once we started going, because I had a lot to do, it was always about the piece, whoever else was in it. So if I felt that there was an issue that it wasn't quite working, it was more going to Jamie or going to Kiefer and say, what do you feel about this or this? I would never speak for them. And then I would take the lead and go in there and say, look, and I got to say, look, Lost Boys is Lost Boys because of Joel. Now, I'm not, and when I say that, I mean, he got the guy who shot Raging Bull and Taxi Driver, Michael Chapman. that guy doesn't come off that and shoot teen vampire movies, but Joel got him. He got Bo Welch, who was an amazing production designer. And then he got all these actors. He get Dianne Wiest right off an Oscar, Ed Herrmann, Barnard Hughes, and young guys like me and Kiefer.
Which in turn led Warner Brothers to slash $2 million off the film's budget. That $2 million was going to be used for prosthetics and special effects, which led Schumacher to cut down drastically and save most of that money for the finale. It also meant, for effect, that Joel Schumacher would have to break a promise to Jason Patric and make him wear vampire makeup in the finale. Something he had promised he wouldn't have to do, trying desperately to get him on board. Some of the more interesting things that had to be done for budgeting, many of the flying sequences are actually unused offcuts from Top Gun. The vampire... Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/movie night extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. We also have a new Discord and a Letterboxd HQ account, so those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Links are in the description. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Katie Baldassaro is the co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, a director, writer, and actress who wrote and co-directed Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in horror movies like The Purge Election Year and The Devil's Nightmare. You can catch her voice acting in the podcast series, The Starwell Foundation, and she is the host of What If I Don't Like It, and on TikTok at Movie Runtime. Bonnie Burton is a writer, author, and journalist, the former senior editor and social media strategist for StarWars.com and content developer for Lucasfilm. She has written games for Hunt a Killer and most recently a Magic the Gathering murder mystery game, Magic the Gathering, Murders at Karlov Manor, The Case of the Three-Blade Knife. Lauren Chouinard is a writer and social media strategist who writes film reviews for Merry-Go-Round magazine and is on Letterboxd as Lonely Goat Herd. She's also always working on musical theater productions, including this November, SpongeBob SquarePants the Musical at Cabrillo College in Santa Cruz. Ticket link is in the description. I, of course, am your host and the head vampire, Forrest Miller. You'll never grow old, Conan, and you'll never die, but you must feed. So we have 2 of Santa Cruz's, finest resident, current resident and former resident.
Yeah.
To talk about the Lost Boys, the most Santa Cruz / Santa Carla movie of all time. It's hilarious.
Santa Carla.
It's so close to Santa Clara.
There's a Santa Clara right over the hill.
Yeah, that's the weird part. There is a Santa Clara.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Is there Santa Clarita?
Well, there's that zombie show too. They
and
made
then
a show about Santa Clara.
And then where was Buffy? Where was Buffy's town?
Oh, that was
Santa Clara, Santa Carla, Santa. I had this all in my brain, and then it just disappeared.
I used to work in Santa Clara. I used to be a senior network engineer in Santa Clara. So
there you go.
Relatable.
Oh, So I don't. Someone in comments say, I know there's someone watching that's going to be like, oh yeah, Buffy was. I guess I could look on my device.
Is it Sunnydale? Sunnydale is where
Sunnydale was Buffy.
Sunnydale, not Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale is real because
Sunnyvale is next to Santa Clara.
Yeah,
exactly. Over the hill.
Why do they do fictional names when they just should do the regular? I mean, is that illegal?
Well, and that's the big thing is that they were like, Santa Cruz. This is the most Santa Cruz thing ever. Is that they're like, we don't want to be known as the murder capital, so let's just change the name. And I'm like, but you guys are currently the murder capital.
You're still the murder capital. But yeah, absolutely.
I know it's like marketing's not going to help your crime rate. That's not how that works.
Can you guys explain why it was called the murder capital of the world? Because it's not the death, it's not the murder rate itself. It's a totally different reason.
So the reason
it's the vampires.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
because of vampires. No, the reason it was called the murder capital of the world was that during the 70s, there was a really large concentration of serial killers that lived there. We had Edmund Kemper lived there.
You
Herbert
also would hang
Mullen.
out at the one and only jury room, which is
The
a great
jury
bar in Santa
room,
Cruz,
yes.
which I hung out at a lot. So I was like, oh, shoot.
The jury room is real divey.
It's very
I
divey.
could see it. Yeah. And then there was another one. John Linley Frazier. But like there was because Santa Cruz was like it was about I think like 30,000 people at the time. Like they were like, this is a very disproportionate amount of murders in such a small town. Now I think the county is about like 250,000 people and it's quite sleepy, but it has like a weird vibe still, even though the crime rate is quite low now.
Wait, so are you living there right now?
I am. I'm reporting from Capitola, California right now.
Okay, so
Santa Cruz.
I lived before I started working at Lucasfilm. It was during the first .com crash. So like that would have been 2000 and I guess 2000. So like I was there when I worked at Nullsoft. When I was like an editor for Winamp, which was a music player for you old kids.
Yes.
For you young kids who don't know, before streaming, before Napster, before Spotify, before Pandora, before everything, there was Winamp. As a player, you could play your CDs on. You could make little skins for it and stuff.
It really whipped the llama's ass. Yeah.
It was Tom Pepper and Justin Frankel started the company. So I came on board right as they sold it to AOL, either AOL or Time Warner, one of those, because the Time Warner AOL merger was happening. My point was, I moved out of the Castro, where I lived with my drag queen friends and everybody, because I was dating someone. I was dating Tom, who was one of the co-creators of Nullsoft, and he lived in Boulder Creek, which is even
the mountains, the mountain people.
So it's a mountain people.
Where the vampires hang out.
That's where the vampires hang out. So we lived in Boulder Creek, and it was in the mountains of Santa Cruz. So not even in Santa Cruz proper, which is like more civilized than where I was living. I was living with like the rich eccentric / mountain people / commune / cult / hippies. So like water classes. They're still there. Yeah. But I was living with a bunch of hackers. So basically it was like a hacker house. So it would have been like, I guess the first kind of house everyone lived in Halt Catch Fire or maybe Social Network. I think they had a house in Palo Alto that was similar. Where it was just
I'm picturing Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, just hacker. Oh, not that hackers. That's a different. That's not real hackers.
Hack the Earth.
That's a different movie we should be talking about at some other point. But the mountains of Santa Cruz. The reason I have a point. So the reason I'm bringing this up, the mountains of Santa Cruz, where Brookdale Lodge is, which is one of the most haunted, haunted hotel / but great brunch place for like biscuits and gravy and stuff. Yeah. There are so many haunted weirdo places in those mountains. It's like Blair Witch adjacent, right? So there's a lot of weird mountain people, a lot of weird witch activity, cult activity. So when I lived up there, so that would have been like 2001, so 2001. So right at Y2K. Right after 9/11, right? Like all the weirdness that's happening in the world. But then also, it's just a weird place to live. But I was convinced that there were vampires living near us just because of like, we would hang out at certain bars. And there's only one bar. It's Brookdale Lodge. It's like you go to the bar.
Brookdale Lodge, yeah.
That's where you go. Jury room was like the fancy dive. Like we were like hillbillying it. Yeah. So I was convinced Lost Boys really was a thing. When the movie came out, I was living in Colorado. So I wasn't in Santa Cruz when the movie came out. But as soon as I moved near Santa Cruz, I was like, oh no, I'm doing research. I'm seeing if this is real. Because I was like, I don't think the Lost Boys is as fictional as we think.
It's definitely a vibe. I do wish, as I was like watching the movie, I was like, I wish people like dressed like that and walked around listening to Echo and the Bunnymen. Like, I wish that those people still lived in Santa Cruz, but now they're like.
Jamie Gertz does. I feel like the people that dress like the girls that dress like Jamie Gertz in that movie. Oh, they're all over.
They're everywhere. They're still everywhere. There's
but no one's dressing like the vampires. No one's dressing like Kiefer Sutherland. There's no Kiefer Sutherland lookalikes, but definitely Jamie Gertz.
There's a very lowly attended goth night at the Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, Blue Lagoon. I've been there for goth night. It was just me and one other goth. I remember that.
Still like that, yeah. Such a bummer.
I know, right? I remember going, it was just 2 goths, and I'm like, there's more goths in Colorado in my high school in the 80s than there were at Santa Cruz in the early aughts. I was like, what the heck?
We need to get a little more Santa Carla into our Santa Cruz.
I
Bring
know.
it back.
We need shirtless saxophone players to bring it in.
Absolutely.
I won't take my shirt off, but I got the saxophone.
That was like a real draw though. Like they had that guy playing on the beach. A big part of the story behind why they changed it from Santa Cruz to Santa Carla. They said that they could shoot anywhere in the they didn't even need permits. They could shoot anywhere as long as they changed the name. So it's like so they were doing that the boardwalk, like that whole part of it, and then the beach performance, like they were doing that live. And then like they had a whole thing where the crowd kept storming the guy's concert. So every single time it'd have to literally cut and then start all over again because there was an entire crowd that had formed around this guy's concert and they were all fans of King Capella or whatever. Yeah, so he was like an actual draw on the beach.
Well, and not only was he a draw, he still is, and he still tours, and he played Milwaukee not that long ago, and a bunch of people I know went to that show, and it was 2 blocks away from Joe Cannon's band, and I went and saw Joe's band. I presume so. I didn't go. I mean,
he still looks good. He does.
I feel like people would ask for a refund if they wasn't.
He was at Comic-Con one year. He was like in the autograph alley of Comic-Con where the wrestlers were one year, and I was like, there's a saxophone player. Like he has so many fans. I think probably maybe ironically at first, but now everyone's like, no, we like him for like legit, like not for irony, not for like snarkiness, but no, he's great.
I would come out to see.
I'm pretty sure Bonnie I'm sorry, Lauren, but I'm pretty sure there were some ironic showgoers to that show.
Well, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not all just sarcastic assholes, but I don't know. Like also John Hamm did that iconic sketch of him on SNL of him like butting into meetings and stuff, which was like, if you ever want to laugh, that's like, just Google like Lost Boys saxophone John Hamm into YouTube and you'll see it. But it's a great sketch because he basically just jumps in places he shouldn't be playing shirtless saxophone. But yeah, I love that so much. But also he was in
Better Than a Rickroll.
He was also in Mad Max Thunderdome as right?
Yeah.
That was because he's in the Tina Turner video too, but he's also in the movie. If am I remembering that right, or was there not a saxophone?
Yeah, I think he's on one of the at the end because I watched Thunderdome recently. I think he's on one of the cars. They have him playing.
Yeah, there we go. I was like, wait, is he in the?
You can kind of slot him in almost anything. Really, anything like post 82, you could slot him in.
Yeah, he just shows up. He's like, "Where's Waldo?"
Just around.
There's always room for a shirtless, oiled up saxophone player.
Yeah. He's a street performer, just going.
Hey, if I ever
going far harder than necessary, and I'm using my words very carefully.
Casting power to do any movie whatsoever. I'm putting him in any movie I have. He's gonna be like. Kind of not the Rickroll, but he'll be like an Easter egg in everything I do.
He could be like the office manager, but he only speaks in saxophone.
Yeah, well, it's very strange how unifying that scene is. I don't think I know a single person who doesn't jump to that's my fucking favorite scene. It's within the first 10 minutes, and it's a minute tops, and yet straight women, gay women, non-binary, asexual, everybody's like, it's not even about how sexy it is. It's just that fucking scene slaps.
And I also have like a vision that they tried to recruit him as a vampire, but he's like, no, I'm too cool to be a vampire. Like I have like a side story in my brain that went on that was like before they went for, our lovely Jason Patric, aka Jim Morrison wannabe, that they went straight for a saxophone guy. And saxophone guy like, no, I'm too cool.
I got a career.
Yeah. Or maybe he's already a god.
I looked up Jim Morrison vampire to understand why, and it turns out the association comes down to one single woman who works for the church of where Jim Morrison is their god in California, and she just likes to draw him with vampire teeth.
Well, it's
And that
not
just
just
blew
that.
up.
It was right after the Jim Morrison movie came out with Val Kilmer, and it was hugely popular. And a lot of studios wanted to replicate Jim Morrison-esque characters in their movies. So this movie came out after that, and because of People Are Stranger is in the soundtrack. It's also a Doors thing with that. So it was not, and also, you know, they had the poster in the Vampire Man Cave or whatever. That is why, because at that era of the 80s, late 80s, people were really into the Doors and Jim Morrison again. There was like a resurgence.
That shot,
people think that he's a vampire. And
I do. Oh, not Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison. Jimi Hendrix is just a
they
god.
think both of them are vampires.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I just
They
pretend he's a
actually call
Morrison.
Jimi Hendrix the Jim Morrison of vampires. Which
All the
kills the guy.
Jims. Yeah, Jim Neighbors.
Anybody
All the
named Jim?
Jims.
Anyone?
Jim Neighbors the vampire. I would greenlight that picture in a minute. By the way.
What about Jim Henson the vampire? I would.
Jim
greenlight
Varney?
that.
Sure.
All the
Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan looks like he can't.
No,
go out in
just
sunlight.
80s Jim.
Yeah.
Just
You're
80s
so
and
right,
70s Jim.
Call it just Jim.
That scene where they zoom in on the Jim Morrison poster, and then they have Jason Patric kind of looks like his facial structure.
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That was not coincidental. I think he
Not
was
an accident.
honestly, I think he was literally cast because he looked like Jim
Yeah.
Morrison. I don't think there was any other reason, because he wasn't a big name back then. He wasn't even like a middle name back then. So it was like, this was the movie that kind of put him on I think it was the movie that put him on the chart, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to like diss any like Jason Patric fans out there. Was he also, was he also like, was he dating Julia Roberts, or was Kiefer at this time? Because Flatliners, Julia Roberts was dating Kiefer, right? Or was it the other way around? She dumped Jason Patric for Kiefer's during Flatliners. Yeah, so there was like a weird love triangle between Julia Roberts, Kiefer Sutherland, and Jason Patric, because I think she was dating Jason Patric and dumped him for Kiefer, or the other way around.
All right. I don't know nor care about any of that, but I will say the Vampire Hangout is really awesome because it's like, take the idea of like the vampires from before, where you have like the degraded like upper class palace, right?
Yeah.
And this is something where it's like, first of all, you're taking the fact there's earthquakes. Right. So it's like, oh no, the earthquake, like it's underground now. And that's why they hang out here and get Chinese food. You know, okay. You know, like it all works so well with it. And I love that this particular movie's thing is it takes it away from that sort of upper class Victorian mansion thing and puts on the boardwalk, the Santa Cruz Beach boardwalk, everybody.
In the warm California sun.
In the warm California sun.
That commercial jingle.
Endless.
Between murder capital and like beach town.
Yeah.
Murder.
But I do like that it's just acknowledged and like it's on like the back of like the billboard too, of like, because so many movies are like, if you're thinking about like okay, look at Buffy the Vampire. Hold on, Bonnie. Hold on. Look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where it's like the okay, you can wait for that.
I'll wait.
The death rate for that town is sort of like at a certain point, like when does the FBI get called in? Like when do you get an Agent Cooper or like Mulder and Scully to be like, how are people? This population of this town is like 10,000 people, and like half of them are dead. How did that happen?
Real. No, that's true.
That's one of the things though, like because. Like throughout the entirety of the vampires going after people, it's just kind of the boardwalk trash that they're going after. Like whether it's the security guard guy that's gone missing, or like the other gang of roving. I like that there's just other gangs of roving.
Yeah, there's other gangs that are around.
Yeah,
this one is vampires.
You know what? That has not changed about Santa Cruz. You don't want to be near the boardwalk. It's quite fuzzy. Like that's maintained, which is so funny because when I was watching the movie, I was like, wow, the boardwalk has not changed one bit at all since this movie was filmed. Not
people
even
just dress less cool. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Except for that we don't have enough Echo and the Bunnymen. Like that
right.
is so it went downhill.
Do you want? Can I be girly? Can I be girly and just interject one quick thing? And I promise I'll never mention again, Conan, and we can go on talking about vampires. But I think for the ladies, and maybe not, maybe it's just me and Lauren, but maybe not Lauren, maybe just me. Julia Roberts sparked a tabloid frenzy in 1991 when she broke off her 10-month-long engagement to Kiefer Sutherland and jetted off with his best friend, fellow actor Jason Patric, on what would have been the day of their wedding. On their wedding day. On their wedding day. So think about that. Think about that a little bit when we're discussing the relationship between Jason Patric and Kiefer Sutherland in this movie, because I feel like he steals Kiefer Sutherland's girlfriend Jamie Gertz in the movie.
Right? Yeah.
His girlfriend. So he does it in real life.
That was his. So Jamie Gertz was Jason Patric's girlfriend at the time in real life, and actually Jason Patric that cast her in this. Because he had just an unprecedented, like almost godly amount of.
Because they wanted him so bad that they wanted to be involved.
Because no one really now, although this year he's having a wonderful year. Do you guys know he's the narrator in Strange Darling, and he's playing Michael in Terrifier 3?
He's doing really well.
Michael.
Yeah,
It
has to. 114 Michaels. And to put that in perspective, there's 146 fucks in South Park the movie. And 114 Michaels in this. And this is way shorter.
Oh my god, that broke me.
It's 114. This movie's only 97 minutes.
No, it's stunning how many Michaels are fit in there. It is like a dare, as if they're like, hey, the more times you say this word, the more funding we get for the movie. So you better say the word Michael.
But I do want to bring up Jamie Gertz. She was actually more famous than Jason Patric at this time because she'd already done Square Pegs as a teenager. She was in a great Kevin Bacon movie called Quicksilver, where she played Bike Messenger in New York, and it's a really good movie. So I highly recommend Quicksilver if you want to see a good Kevin Bacon movie where he's not dancing. She's in 16 Candles. She's in everything. Yeah, and I mean, she was in Facts of Life. She was in Crossroads. Remember that movie about the guitar player, the dude from what was his name that never ages, and he's in Karate Kid.
Ralph Macchio versus Steve Vai. Steve Vai is the devil's thranger. Yeah, so it's it's a thrang off, and it's a classic Robert Johnson thing. It's a crazy movie.
Such a great movie. But after Lost Boys, so I don't know when they filmed Less Than Zero because it came out the same year as Lost Boys.
Yeah.
So she may have filmed Less Than Zero before Lost Boys, which really, really cemented her as kind of Brat Pack adjacent. So I think she was pretty famous. She was in more stuff than Jason Patric was. So I don't want to do her a disservice saying that Jason got her in this movie. I'm pretty sure she probably could have gotten this movie without him. But I'm glad he was looking out for her. I'm glad that he was like, no, I want my girlfriend here. Which, by the way, most casting agents will not do. Because if they know you're dating someone, that's conflict of interest. And if you break up on set, and I know this from personal experience working at Lucasfilm, when certain actors break up during a movie, how horrible that can be for, I don't know, if they're set to do 2 other movies. 3 other movies, not a great
contention works for the characters. They're supposed to hate each other, kind of.
Anyway.
This movie wasn't your average movie though, because number one, Richard Donner, who was doing Lethal Weapon at this time, was doing this movie with his wife, and because they had a production company, and they were so they were working on other stuff at the same time, but they really wanted to do this movie. So they gave they gave Joel Schumacher an unprecedented amount of creative control, as did Warner Brothers, because they were just we want to do this movie. This seems like it would be a good idea, whatever. And then of course they slashed his budget by $2 million because they wanted to cast mainly unknown actors to play the vampires, which is cool because most of the vampires would go on to be, and the kids in this movie would go on to be huge deals after this movie,
absolutely. Well, Alex Winter says 3 words of it. I don't think, probably 2 of which are Michael, but he's in this movie too, right? Forget about it. Oh yeah, Alex Winter's in this.
I mean, he's before Better Off Dead.
He's the twisted sister looking guy, according to the kids. Yeah.
Before
so what I was saying is
Bill and Ted.
Year before, but a year before this, there was the movie Solar Babies, which was produced, not directed,
so good,
but produced by Mel Brooks. And so both
really
both Jason Patric and Jami Gertz they started dating because of that movie, and that movie was what Joel Schumacher had seen to want to cast Jason Patric. So then he was like, yeah, well, you've seen this movie already. My girlfriend that's in this movie with me, like, or I mean, who knows if he even said we're dating it before they got to set, but like,
pretty obvious. That's from Solar Babies. I mean, come on. By the way, Solar Babies is a roller skating movie, just so you know. It's a great roller skating movie.
That's so he said, like, basically, like, listen, I'll be in this, I guess, after like, you know, weeks of, but he's like, we got to cast Jami Gertz because the guy had already seen, you know, the last movie that they were in too.
Yeah, there's your roller skating team. So I was in roller derby. This is like roller derby sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's like not Galaxy Quest. It's like Sequest with roller skate.
It's what every roller derby team thinks they're doing. Yes, absolutely.
No. Roller derby thinks they're doing Whip It, which is what they actually are.
Well,
doing.
now, yeah, but Solar Babies is 1986. I'm talking about like what were the other than Rollerball, right? Like what were the roller derby movies at the time?
And Rollerball was supposed to be like NFL, whereas this is definitely.
I'm familiar,
more
buddy.
Like,
yes.
This is more like what's that TV show that was late at night where everyone says an obstacle course? Remember that?
American Gladiators.
It's like American Gladiators with a random kid. It's like that's what it feels like is American Gladiators.
Hey, this movie has a random kid too.
In the movie, it's all about that. 80s was always about a random underage kid hanging out with high school.
In this case, two of them who were directed to be more serious than they were being. Yeah. Therefore, you have them, especially Corey, speaking like in the gruffest way possible because he was meant to. Was it Rambo? Is that what it needs to be? Hold on, buddy. Hold on a second. So
had him watch Rambo on TV. They had him watch every Sylvester Stallone movie on TV. That's why you sound exactly like. He locked Corey Feldman and Corey Haim in a hotel room, and they just played fucking Sylvester Stallone movies for them.
Oh man! Actually, he went to the George Washington Bridge and he sang. No,
different movie.
Hold a Bowie.
Lauren, I'm curious. When did you first see this movie? When did you first see Lost Boys?
I think I watched this movie probably when I was way too young. And I was like, because I was going through a vampire phase because I was going through a Keanu phase.
A phase you're still in, I would say. Yeah.
That's a good phase.
But I was like, so I just decided I was going to go all in on vampires. So this movie was really scary for me. I think I watched it when I was like, before I even lived in California. And then when I moved to California, when I was like 11 or 12, one of the first places that we went to, because my dad was trying to sell us on California, and one of the first places that we went to was the Boardwalk. And I was like, oh my God, like that place, I just saw it. So and then I didn't return to it like watching the movie until I moved to Santa Cruz. And then it's so funny when you like watch movies from, because Santa Cruz is not that big. And so when like I was watching the movie, I was just like, I had my first date with my spouse there. Like I go on my like daily walks like in the morning on Westcliff over there, and it's like, and it's really cool because like Santa Cruz has changed a lot as a place, but like in this movie I feel like it's such a time capsule, and then the spaces where they filmed are still kind of exactly the same now as they are. Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's not as developed in those areas. But yeah, I just have a lot of like nostalgia for it, and yeah, it's just stylistically, if you ever go down to like the Boardwalk, it is just kind of like a weird vibe there in general, which is why they also filmed Us there, I feel.
Second most famous movie film that's
yeah. And so yeah, I think that there is just a creepy feel to it that lends itself to horror movies that you don't think about when you're a kid, but because I watched The Lost Boys first before going to the Boardwalk, I be knowing. And so, but yeah, it was a very formative experience. I also just, it made me want to be a cooler teenager, and I never got that cool.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space is also shot there.
Yeah, that's probably about third or fourth, but
that's
yeah,
the third or fourth. They shot a Transformer here or something.
I think it counts because it's circus, so it's creepy as hell, and it's got a good creepy vibe to it. But yeah, you're right about Santa Cruz being a time capsule. Because even when I lived there in the early aughts, it felt still 80s. Like it felt like
It's out of time a little bit.
And I think hippie towns are like that. I went to college in Boulder, Colorado, and in the like 90s, Boulder, Colorado was very much stuck in the 70s. So it was like, I understand Santa Cruz as being stuck in a decade that, at least it's a great decade to be stuck in. So
Eureka, Chico, there's a rich tradition of California towns stuck in the decade before.
I feel like it's kind of fascinating that like this movie already feels like there's a time capsule level thing to like the 60s, like the grandpa is clearly a hippie, like there's the whole conversation like, oh, like if I was almost named like Moonbeam, like that whole conversation. There's like well, this is the 80s, this is more like modernity, but like we still kind of have this quaint,
time moves slower in beach towns. It just does.
It is, and Lauren and Bonnie, I'd like you to back me up on this. I feel like that type of person does absolutely exist in those type of coastal towns, and it's nailed. Like even to the point of like when he's playing dead. Like, why are you playing dead? Nobody knows what you're doing. Why are you doing this? Like that weird stuff. It's totally
that grandpa character. He is a quintessential Brookdale Lodge bar guy.
I was gonna say he's a mountain person.
He's down between,
just like Trace Perance from Mr. Bungle.
Well, even down to like spraying lemon pledge as a cologne. You could smell that in Brookdale Lodge as a cologne. Like that was. I think they stole it. Like I wonder how much real world research was done on Santa Cruz residents that were longtime residents, not people that just showed up and moved there, but like the old timers that and his nonchalance about weird shit is such a Santa Cruz trait, especially when you talk to like really old guys that have been in cults and communes. Like I remember having a long conversation with some dude who was part of Manson's group before they got all violent. And he's like, it was pretty cool because the chicks were like pretty hot and they were smart.
Priorities.
And it was really fun, but then it got weird. So I kind of left before the whole violence happened. And like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like, I'm like shocked.
I feel like half of them have like Ken Kesey stories, where it's like, all right, we were hanging out at, Ken Kesey? Jeez, okay.
Yeah, and they're just so like nonchalant about it, where I would be like wearing a t-shirt that said I was in the Manson family and all I got was this t-shirt. Like, I would be all over that. But the fact that he was like, and also like if you bring up cults or ghosts, because Brookdale Lodge is very famously haunted. If you bring up ghosts, they'll be like, oh yeah, like the bartender that worked there for a long time. He's like, it happens all the time. They always steal the Hennessy, and it's like, wait, what?
It's so casual.
And that nonchalance gives you
this lore on you out of nowhere. But they
out of nowhere.
But they are the mountain people, and that's why I really like that the movie. It's like, we like meet the vampires and the cool counterculture thing or whatever is down near the flats, but then like the real crazy shit goes on in the mountains near the Paganip, and I'm like, accurate.
And he doesn't have a whole
amazing. I don't know where that house is in Santa Cruz, but it's stun.
Oh, like, it's like a golf lodge or something along those lines.
I don't even think it's still there, is it? Is it still?
It was for a long time. But I think it's important to note that the grandpa character, like his disinterest in going into town, like we're going to town, haha, just messing with you. We're not going anywhere.
I will agree. So by living in Boulder Creek, which is a very tiny town, so it's near Scottsdale or Scotts Valley. Where Scotts Valley has like the Scottish games every year, so everyone with kilts goes out and throws logs. And
go hurling, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but like you have all these little, like you have Felton, you have all these little tiny mountain towns, right? But Boulder Creek is probably the most rural. And Boulder Creek, no one wants to go, and they call Santa Cruz the city, and Santa Cruz is not a city.
It is so not the city, and I say that as a West Coast defendant, to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, I would say closest to a city is, I guess San Jose might be closer than San Francisco, but I moved out of San Francisco, like the Castro, like Drag Queen Central, moved into on the top of a mountain. We were surrounded by national forests, so we didn't even have real neighbors. And we were on top of a mountain where we had to have generators because trees would fall all the time and you couldn't get down the little tiny dirt road to get down to your mailbox or even to like civilization, which is what Boulder Creek was for us. But we hated going to the city. So all the time, I think I got all my clothes, all my food, all my everything at the Ace Hardware. That was like right down I think it was like halfway between us and Felton. And also like there's one grocery store, one fast food place, and that was Round Table Pizza. That was it.
Which still goes, by the way.
I had to grow pot. I had to grow pot to convince delivery guys to come all the way up to our house.
That's so
how I
funny.
get delivery guys to come up.
So brave.
Nobody would go down the city.
That's
It's
why
like
Grandpa had done it in this movie. Maybe that's why he was also growing.
I know, right? I was looking for that.
I guess
For
it's the Poganip Clubhouse.
Yeah. I was gonna say, for the ever-growing audio-only listeners, let's read what is on the screen, which is the house from the 1987 movie. I'm attempting to. Yes, the house from the 1987 movie, The Lost Boys, is the Poganip Clubhouse, located in the hills above Santa Cruz, California. It was a former home of the Casa del Rey Golf and Country Club, which was built in 1912. That's very old for that area. The club was abandoned after construction was delayed by disasters and workers disappeared. The clubhouse has been unoccupied for decades, but it's a popular landmark for hikers.
Vampires.
Wait, when did
Vampires got the construction workers?
Exactly. Where's that
Wait,
prequel?
what? Why did they disappear? We're just glossing over that fact.
Well, that's I'm not glossing over it. The entry is, but that goes back to what we were saying, Bonnie, about the last line. The last line of the grandpa, the Shame Battle of the Vampires. It's sort of like, where's that prequel? Like, where are the greaser vampires?
Oh my
Where's
God,
that?
I talked about this, Conan. You and I talked about this. I so desperately wanted a prequel because they did a sequel. They did a sequel.
Yeah,
that wasn't that great because it was the Frog Brothers, right? It was both Corys. Because I remember when they were promoting it at Comic-Con, and it was
it was the live one, not the dead one. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really touching thing with the Batman number 14. They were both alive. Grave in number 2.
I do believe they were both. I do believe Corey Haim was still alive when the Lost Boys.
Okay, nobody cares about this sequel, least of all me, but it does exist. But the prequel was the thing.
I'm just saying there was an appetite, so to speak, for a thirst, if you will,
a hunger,
if you will, for more Lost Boys stuff because there was a comic, there was a game. Yeah. But the prequel, I want a prequel because I want to see Grandpa as a teenager.
Yeah, that throwaway line where he's like, "Oh, it's the same about all the vampires." Well, wait a second. What? Like, hold on. What?
I want to know about the 50s vampires.
Yeah,
he's hanging out again. Greaser vampires. Ken Kesey's there as a young man.
Like the 60s. I feel like it was.
Did that just happen, or was I tripping? Exactly. This screenplay writes itself.
I want to say the 60s or the 70s are probably when they invaded because that was an era of cults and weirdness and occult, like occult stuff. So that was the satanic panic of the 80s, right? So I feel like they probably came in around the 60s and the 70s because there was an influx, at least in Colorado, where I lived I saw this movie when I was 15. I saw it in the theater. I immediately started dressing like Jamie Gertz, goth Jamie Gertz for a whole year. I was 15 when I saw it. And I like the soundtrack. I went to bed to it. I woke up to it. I had it in my Walkman. I wore out the cassette. I loved this movie. And I loved going to see this movie whenever it was like playing like as like a Halloween thing or a college midnight movie or whatever. But I was there. I saw it and I was convinced vampires were real. But I lived in Colorado. But at that time, Colorado had a huge weird cult thing because of all the UFO sightings. So for us, it was all that kind of thing, not necessarily. Yeah. We had a lot of satanic stuff too, but it wasn't like vampire cult. Whereas in Santa Cruz, when I moved there, there was talks of a vampire cult, but I never saw them at goth night. So I don't know what kind of vampire.
They never show up to goth night. I'm there.
I know.
Come on. Step it up, vamps. Let's go.
Are they like vampires?
Maybe nobody invited them in. Maybe nobody invited them in.
But maybe they're vampires that are not. Maybe they're like hippie vampires and not sexy vampires. Like maybe they're Birkenstocks. Like
maybe they don't dress cool because they're too used to being alone.
No, they need to stay home. I'm over it.
They're in sweatpants. They're sweatpants vamps. No, nobody's looking for that. Yeah, you're right.
I wanted to say, like, looking at this movie versus The Hunger versus looking at like Bram Stoker's Dracula and Nosferatu, right? Like the thing that makes these vampires not hate that they live on, that they're living and whatever, like because there's been so many angsty fucking vampires that we've seen this month, I feel like, and the camaraderie of having a group of guys you kind of hang out with, they're all vampires.
They're having a great time.
That seems to improve the experience by a lot. Like you look at like Gary Oldman as Dracula, he's a mopey motherfucker because he's alone. He's alone in that big ass house all the time. right? Like
these
having
vampires
a group of
are
guys.
non-toxic masculinity. They are creating community. They have an agenda. They have things to do together.
They have activities, group activities. Yeah, they're
it seems like they cohabitate very well. They all pitch in on their like worm food. Like they're
bikers. They're a biker gang. They're a biker gang that became vampires. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like this is like like you said, Forrest, totally accurate. Like I always thought, oh, this is like if not a frat house became vampires, but it's like a biker gang. They want to be vampires, so that's what they are. They are, for all intents and purposes, they are a biker gang because they're on bikes.
I had an idea.
You know what's really interesting about the biker gang thing?
In chat earlier this month, I had this idea of like a vampire frat movie, and they just have blood keg, like they go.
There you go. Yeah. Call it Blood Cake. That could be the title of the film.
That's the movie. There you go. Write it, Forrest. Write the movie.
Lauren, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna say it's really interesting because it's like the local biker gang like thing that the vampires like have going on. Like Santa Cruz like was very much like a like it was like biker a hub for biker gangs like back in the day. So it really is like it's so funny how it's like the setting affects the movie and the movie like affected the setting in its way.
But it's also interesting because it's like they do follow rules, which I'm sure we'll cover, but they do follow they can't be out during the daytime if they're full vampires, right? Like Jami and the little boy could because they weren't fully vampires yet because there's all these rules about how you're like half vampire, full. So if you're full vampire, you have to be in a cave. Sleeping upside down like a bat was just hilarious, by the way. But there is a reason. So much fun. Doing that, but there's a reason they're more of a biker gang than, let's say, vampire surfers, which would make more sense in Santa Cruz because you want bikers because bikers tend to be a bit more nocturnal. They tend to like to party at night.
Surfers wake up real early.
But also bikers have hazing rituals like hanging from a bridge.
So this is an important thing, right? Like, and especially Michael, they give him the business, right? They like give him like the hazing rituals, and that's something that also seems like it's great for these malevolent entities to like they can just run around and give people the business, and there's a group of them, so people are less likely to challenge them. Except for that one cop who gets got in the parking lot like almost immediately.
That's now my favorite phrase he's ever said. Conan.
But the tagline.
Give them the business.
The tagline.
They are.
The original movie poster: sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire.
Yeah, except also ruin Chinese food for everyone watching.
For forever and ever, amen.
Because I could never, ever, ever, ever eat those noodles again because all I see are worms, and then the rice was magnets, and I'm like, don't ruin rice for me. That's like a staple. But like the garlic noodles. Like, I was like, come on. And I know what they're doing. They're doing that classic thing that when you take LSD for the first time and your friends are like trying to screw with you when you're like taking a hallucinogen for the first time, they'll do stuff like that. They'll be like, oh, why are you eating worms, Bonnie? Why are you eating rice? But they're really maggots. Why are you eating maggots?
Yeah.
And when you're high like that on a hallucinogen, you're very subjective, right? Like you think you're seeing what they're saying, even though that's more a vampire telepathy trick. That's not really hallucinogen,
but it's also but I think it's played well because it's almost like it's a party environment. There's a slight inebriation going on.
Like it is that kind of counterculture kind of feel that they have.
Am I seeing that or am I just
Jim Morrison, Lizard King himself, notoriously takes a lot of LSD to do his Jim Morrison hijinks, so of course it makes sense that the guy who looks like Jim Morrison
right
he's stripping his balls off because they give him a bottle and they say it's blood and he's like, yeah,
great,
sure,
whatever.
And like, oh boy.
Throughout this movie, on multiple occasions, they tell him what's going on, and he does like.
He doesn't believe him.
Yeah, it's blood part, and then later, fucking Star is like, he's like, I know it was blood, and it was like she fucking told you that, man.
She warned you, buddy. Listen to
literally told you exactly.
Listen
That's
to
what
the only girl in the cave. Listen to the girl and listen to the final girl.
That is what I'm saying. Listen to
that would work for the Northmen too, right? Yeah.
It's like, bro,
Northmen, everybody.
Because of the girl, and then you didn't listen to the girl that you liked that was there.
Exactly.
So to play devil's advocate, she was kind of used like Charlie Manson girl bait to get him to come over. Like she knew. I feel like that was a little. Like, I feel like, Kiefer Sutherland's character kind of let them flirt because he wanted to bring him into the fold. So she was sort of bait, but I don't know if that was like a consensual thing. Like, I don't know if she knew she was.
But you know what? I get it because I would have done it too.
Me too.
Me too.
Hard relatable.
I watched documentaries about the Manson family. I'm like, why the hell would you follow Charlie Manson? He looks like that. But if he looked like Jason Patric, Jamie Gertz, or Kiefer Sutherland, I might have joined up. So I was like, that's a beautiful cult. I'm willing to join and ruin Chinese food and drink blood forever.
What was it like once time in Hollywood? It's like Quali and like Sydney Sweeney and stuff like that. Like, it's like all that everyone is like.
Honest, there are not that many hot people in Santa Cruz for real. So if you're walking around, you must take advantage. You have to.
We used to
your only chance at finding a hot person.
We used to say there was like one. I don't remember the name of it, Lauren. Maybe you remember the name of it, but there's like one strip joint, and we were like, "No, are they Dita Von Teese type strippers, or are they Santa Cruz strippers? Because Santa Cruz strippers are always like John Waters characters. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
There's
the bigger agenda though at the end of the movie. I mean, spoilers for everyone that you know.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert for 1987 movie.
But like Mac actually sticks his group on the two kids because of the fact that he's like, oh, I could merge these two families into like a fucked up little vampire Brady Bunch family.
The Brady Bunch reference is excellent in this.
I love that.
So it kind of makes sense in that context where it's like, oh, go flirt with this guy, and then there's a guy at the top, which is the same thing as the Charlie Manson thing in a way. I don't think you meet Charlie Manson until you're real deep into the family. Yeah. Like they throw the bait at you, or they throw the bait.
Yeah, the girls. Yeah, if I recall, I'm not that I tried to join up the Manson family. I should say I'm not that old.
Yeah, from my personal experience,
But from my personal experience with cults, usually what happens, because this is what they try to do with what's his toes from the Beach Boys, right? Because they're trying to get him.
Right?
Brian, not Brian, the youngest. Who was the youngest one? Not Brian.
The one.
It was the
Danny?
Dennis Wilson?
Dennis Wilson.
Yeah.
Dennis Wilson.
So Dennis, they ployed Dennis with hot chicks and drugs. And he's like, yeah, this is cool. So he almost joined their little
he lived at their house for a few months, right?
Well, I mean, there's that whole conspiracy about how Charlie Manson wanted to be a rock star, and the Beach Boys manager kind of basically tricked him, and they used a song of his, and that's why the Manson murders happened, blah blah blah, because he was supposed to be there, but Sharon Tate was instead. My point is that when you want people to join your cult before you become a murderous cult, usually you want to have really hot members, because any cult's like that, right? I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but
Children of God did that too. They had that whole flirty fishing thing.
Yeah,
which
flirty
is basically
fishing.
Which is what Jamie Gertz is doing in this movie.
Right,
it's just you get a hot girl to be the forefront of your cult, to bring you in and say, no, it's like a commune, it's a family, you'll be accepted, it's your found family. It's
I've seen it happen in political campaigns. Absolutely, it's a tried and true method.
But cults do that now, like NXIVM. That's how they got women in, is they had a hot woman say this is a women's self-help group. That's how you get into a cult.
I've read books on Charlie. I read one pretty recently on Charlie Manson, and the way that they did is they had a couple of the Manson girls on the side of the road hitchhiking.
Yeah, hitchhiking.
He picked up the two girls, and so he drove them wherever, and then later that night he came home and Charlie Manson and all of the girls were sitting on his driveway, and they just moved in. Dennis Wilson, it was Dennis. It wasn't, but Dennis Wilson and his and whatever I think his wife at the time, now his ex-wife, they actually moved out of the fucking house because they were like, all right, well, we can't get these people to leave, and they kind of are scary, so they moved somewhere else, and they were at the house for months, and then they eventually
I mean, they tried to do that with the Monkees in Laurel Canyon too. They were definitely trying to squat in the best houses of rock stars, but with this, what I love about Lost Boys is they're almost too cool. It's the vampires in this are no, we're not trying to get you to join us. You need to prove to us that you're worthy.
That you're cool enough to be part of our gang too.
And that makes it even cooler because you have to hang from a bridge. Yeah, and then the hanging from the. By the way, hanging from a bridge isn't really hazing if you can fly. I'm sorry, that's not.
It is, but if you can't, it is the wildest of wild antics. To be
I know, but
clear.
I was like, why don't they just hang out watch the sunrise? That's hazing for vampires, not like hanging from a bridge at midnight.
Bro,
I mean,
That's someone who.
But that's implying that it's thought out, though. I mean, none of this is. This is just like.
I know.
So all right. So this goes back to something I want to talk about. Two of which is that when we talked about the hunger, there was I was talking about, and I froze during it, unfortunately. But there's a major difference between living forever and being young for forever.
True.
And what I like about this movie is it's hard. It's hard for people to reconcile this, other than the book Interview with the Vampire, like Dianne writes books within movies, large mainstream movies. Young vampires were not a thing. So the idea that not only are these vampires cool, they look like they'd be a fun hang. They dress well, like they're having a good time.
Right.
Like this is something where you get to hang out with your buddies and do cool guy stuff for forever.
Well, it's young
this
guys.
is very masculine.
So I think it's the first time we get I don't remember when Near Dark came out because that also has
Near Dark is the same year.
That's right. Near Dark.
Near Dark also, that's more your Midwest. That's like a Midwest Lost Boys.
It's different vibe. But what I like about it is following the hunger, whereas it's a difference. It's a big difference where it's no, you live forever, but by the way, there's a catch to this, and you don't always look like David Bowie, like how we want him to look
like. Well, with vampire rules, and it depends on it depends on the rules, right? It depends on the world building. It's you basically stay the age you are when you become a vampire, and that's your age, right? So if you don't want to be 80 and become a vampire, but you also don't want to be 2 and become a vampire, because Claudia was very young.
That's the Kirsten Dunst Interview with the Vampire.
Right.
Oh, wait, yeah. We talked about that.
Kirsten Dunst is older in the movie
than it is in the book. Right. We're not talking about that book. We're talking about the fact that this is the first time young vampires showed up.
My point.
Well, your point is interrupting my point, but I'll let you go. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I thought you were ready to talk about young characters, and no, go ahead.
No, because we'll get to that. So that's one of the things, right? But it's also, again, this is the first time you really see the clique of vampires, and that becomes very important going forward, and becomes something that we naturally think about. Like, oh, of course you have all the other vampires you hang out with and do cool vampire stuff with, right? But you really just didn't see that. And again, it's weird. It's not quite a mainstream movie, but it broke mainstream, and if nothing else, because of the Coreys, right? So it's something where, again, you have entire generations like, wow, that looks awesome. Being a vampire seems like it's pretty rad. And that just wasn't really a thing that happened before. Again, as Forrest mentioned, you had things like the Herzog Nosferatu, where it's this guy's a pathetic jerk just hanging out in his mansion. What a bummer that is. And then on your good side of it is you have your Deneuve in the Hunger, she seems like she has a pretty good life, but is also kind of sad and lonely, and also she's very abusive to all her exes, which is duly noted. But this marked a sea change for a number of levels, not the least of which is that you have hot young vampires, and there's a group of them, and it's important to mention that within mainstream culture, because that's one of the things that why we focused on this one instead of some other ones, is we get that here, and that's kind of ground zero for it. It's not the only thing it does, but it definitely does it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say it gets copied a lot because Fright Night.
Yes, it does.
I would say so. Fright Night 2 came out in '88, so came out after. Fright Night 1 didn't have that gang. Fright Night 2 did. So Fright Night 2 had a cool gang of cool rocker. I want to say they look more like Prince fans than they look like rock fans, but I loved Fright Night 2 because of the gang that hung out with each other. And that was a nest of vampires, right? So you start to get this idea of a nest, though that was something in Hammer films. And I will say young hot vampires were a thing. They were just more with the women. So the bride, right? Or Dracula's daughter, or the young women were always in the classic, especially many of them were in the classic, 70s, 60s, 70s kind of vampire movies. But
well, it goes back to what you're saying about the cults too, right? That's kind of the culty aspect
very cult-like,
of it. But it's also the Hammer stuff was great for us fans of the genre, right? But it didn't break mainstream. That's kind of my point with it.
It depends. Yeah, it kind of. Well, I guess it depends where
you got like images.
Well, it depends. It depends where you grew up, and it depends if you had access to movies and VHS, right? Because I think they had a resurgence in the 80s because of Blockbuster and other places where you could finally get them all on video, and also they were cheap to buy for video companies. Like video rental companies would always have the Hammer films because they're cheap. So like I saw a resurgence happening in the 80s and early 90s with Hammer. Also, they were very gay. So like all of us queer people were like, yay! So it was like that's why we, especially lesbians, especially as bisexuals and lesbians, we're like, yes, finally. But this, when it came to like hot dudes hanging out that were young, that were vampires, but they had like a gang of them. I will agree with you. Lost Boys kind of like, and Near Dark did too. So I guess it kind of just depends on what you.
It was the year of it, but I feel like Near Dark did well, but Lost Boys, like you'd be like, hey, what's up, Lost Boys? Like in the hallway, right? Like it was like had that level of cultural cachet.
Well, it's also a reference to like it's also a Peter Pan reference, so you're gonna have that too.
Sure.
I think it's also just like Joel Schumacher, just like likes to just kind of sprinkle like gayness on everything. Just makes it a little bit like. When you sprinkle on the little fruitiness to it, it just like it gives it that flair that is so like non-threat. Even though the vampires are scary and they're supposed to be a biker gang and they're threatening or whatever, it's also like non-threatening to women. You're like, no, it's okay though.
Until they're killing them.
Until they're killing them.
Well, that camp scene, that fire thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's this wild quote that's on that I saw on Wikipedia, but it's like a Joel Schumacher quote where he's just like, like I just felt like vampires, like they're pretty gay and they're pretty sexual, like they're sucking.
They are.
Like you put it in like the most succinct way, I guess, with that.
You know what? Leave it up to a man who puts nipples on a bat suit. Like I respect it.
I mean, that's kind of gay coded vampire when you really think about it. No, I also like what you just said, Lauren. I love that these vampires, that the young male vampires, also killed other young males. So they weren't just killing females. So you did have sort of a sense of security because you're like, oh, they're going after anyone. It's not, and they are kind of going after douchebags because they did kind of, like those guys at the camp, like the like campsite, the campfire. Those guys were kind of douchey, so I get it, but it's like I don't know. I never understood why they got the young boy. Like that felt a little not great because it's like he's on a milk carton. Oh wait, Katie, what are you doing?
She hungered. She's feasting.
She has the hunger. So it's never really explained. Like does it get explained? Oh my god, that looks so good,
Michael.
Does it get explained in the movie? Like, is Star babysitting?
You must eat ice cream sandwiches, Michael.
Was Star babysitting that young boy? And when they got her as a vampire, they got him too. Is that what happened? Because
I would assume
it wasn't her son. It wasn't her son. So it was like, how did they?
I was wondering that too. That felt unanswered.
Pregnancy. She was undergoing teen pregnancy.
No, she says it's not her son. They say no, Forrest, don't you dare. She never once says it's her son. She says it's not. It's not her son. It's not her son.
I didn't think it was her son.
Oh, okay. I was like,
I just thought it was funny to say like the teen, but no, I think you're right. I think she was babysitting that kid.
That's a movie. Why don't we have that movie?
Right, exactly. There's that spinoff. It's the same series of events from a different perspective. Yeah, I love it.
I want more of her. I want that.
Yeah. Well, and also you could have a totally different movie just following the Frog Brothers. Because again, they treat it so seriously. It is everything they do. It is not funny to them. It is no game. Like they are deadly serious about it. And that's why I love the performances.
They're my favorite.
The funniest is when you realize they've never killed a vampire.
Every comic book store that has people in charge of the horror comics, there's a version of them working there.
Also, can we
this one's got all the rules.
Their names are Edgar and Alan. I was like, guys.
Amazing.
Come on.
Fantastic. Absolutely. No nuts.
We used to have the rules. We had the rules that they had next to the vampire comics at the comic book store.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's handy. One-stop shopping.
We did that as like a shout out to them. But also, just an 80s like pop culture reference, is this the first movie the Coreys did together?
Yeah. So
I was thinking about that. I don't know.
Movie that turned them into the Coreys. They became best friends because they were bunking together.
Yeah.
And they just spent all their time watching movies together. They knew each other. I think they had met before.
They were child stars.
Yeah.
They both grew up in Jewish families, right? I mean, they had like a lot of things in common.
You know, when you're that age.
Corey Haim was actually not a star yet. So Corey Feldman.
License to Drive is where Haim kind of came
Corey
to people's
Feldman
attention.
was in a bunch of TV shows and movies, and I think that they probably were up for the same roles growing up.
Yeah, Goonies.
Right?
Yeah,
Corey
which is also
Feldman
another
was
Richard Donner joint.
Within the Goonies, which partially inspired this script, which is why they ended up like the first person they went to for that was Corey Feldman. But Corey Haim was not a star yet, and kind of was made best friends with Corey Feldman during the filming of this. And then of course it's like the most iconic child star friendship.
It's the first one they pair up, and License to Drive is the one that breaks Haim to like a much larger audience, because the difference between how he looks in this movie versus that movie is fairly striking. Like almost
unrecognizable.
Like they have him like dressed down much younger in this, and they have him dressed up much older.
And you know what? It's like also in the lexicon of fame, and the lexicon of Hollywood fame, and child stars do's and don'ts, right? Like we could do a whole podcast just on the Coreys, and one of these days I will. But I will say, Corey Feldman, even today, brings entertainment. The last red carpet event that I had to cover, I don't even think I was covering it as a reporter. I think I was there because I was working for Stan Lee at the time, and it was Stan Lee's wake. So it was basically this celebrity-filled wake. It was a big deal. It was at the Chinese Theater. There was a red carpet for all the celebrities to walk. So I ran through it quick because no one knows who I am, and I don't want to be on the red carpet anyway. I have enough bad pictures from Miss Getty. I do not need to be on there anymore.
Getty always doing people dirty.
There's always something that's like, please don't use that for when I become killed or a killer. Don't use that picture. I have a binder of pictures. Don't use that. But Corey Feldman, he did this thing. Him and Flavor Flav did the red carpet loop 3 times, not once.
Great.
3, because they wanted
twice, but thrice.
Yeah. They wanted as many photos as possible on the Getty photos, on the, because all the photographers were taking. So Seth Green only went through once. Like actual celebrities only went through once, but they went through multiple times. And this was at the height of Corey Feldman thinking that a werewolf gang was after him.
Oh, that's
right. The quotes he gave us.
Yeah, this is not in the movie, but like this is in real life, right?
Yeah. So anyway, but I love that this is where their friendship started.
It blooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. KT, you're an actress and director in the horror genre. What's your first experience with Lost Boys? When did you first see this one? Like tell me about it.
I have no recollection of the first time that I saw this movie. I have just always seen this movie. I have always known this movie. I have existed in no antebellum this movie. I think it's interesting that Donner keeps choosing to do that. Like the Goonies, he wanted a cast of kids that weren't actors yet either to get these really authentic kiddie moments. And this doesn't quite have that, but it does have that kind of whimsy that you get when you do that with something. So that's like, Richard Donner has a fingerprint, and it's tween children.
But not in any way it's litigious. Yeah.
Wow. Not exactly like, I don't know why I can't remember having seen this, but it's just a movie that you simply must know. There's so many wonderful quotes. As you said earlier, the nonchalance of the grandfather allows for this movie to end in true 80s form.
Which is like,
says the line and then fucking done. Karate Kid.
Yeah, exactly.
He wins, done. So
and we're out.
Yeah.
Roll the credits.
And then the look on everyone's faces. Look on everyone's faces when they're like, we could have avoided this whole scenario if he had just said, because he already gave them rules. Don't take stuff from my snack drawer. Yeah. Don't drink this thing. That's my drink. He could have easily said, "Oh, and by the way, don't befriend cool kids because they're probably vampires."
Yeah.
I imagine
he was representing his taxidermy.
Like it almost cuts to like a laugh track at the end where it's like, that's that grandpa.
I imagine
the taxidermy.
I mean, I am just going to say I had an uncle who was a taxidermist. This is what spawned my love of taxidermy. But
and he keeps having other taxidermy creatures show up in his room, like
I
randomly
didn't remember
too.
at the beginning of the thing there being as much taxidermy, and at the end I'm like,
a
wow, that's a
lot.
lot of taxidermy.
But if there wasn't
A lot of taxidermy and a lot of the word Michael being said aloud multiple times.
Saves them. Taxidermy saves them because remember they put him on the antlers, and if it wasn't there,
it also almost kills him because Kiefer Sutherland's trying to get him on the antlers. I was gonna say, I imagine Katie's snack drawer is the same as the grandpa's in this. She's like, all my ice cream sandwiches in here.
First of all, don't touch my ice cream sandwiches. Secondly, don't drive my car. Thirdly, watch out for the vampires.
That's a real thing, though. My grandfather had a snack drawer we were not allowed to touch, and it was the premium ice cream. Yeah, it was the premium stuff. It was
I get ice cream in a flavor that my husband doesn't like.
What flavor?
Mint.
Oh, okay.
So that I know that it will always be there.
Yeah, that taxidermy is great. Also, that scene where Corey Haim is like it's staring at him while he's reading the like horror comic, and he's like, I can't do this. So he puts it in the closet, and then the closet keeps filling up with taxidermy.
Yeah.
Like it's the best ever. And if you grew up with taxidermy, or if you haven't, I grew up with it, so I was okay with it. But I had like cheetahs and bears and mountain lions and like different ferocious. So the taxidermy I collect is like they're holding a beer, or they're playing pool, or they're dressed as Batman. They're not
they're a ballerina.
Yeah, they're like whimsical taxidermy, not ferocious. But it was the antlers in the wall of antlers that saves the day. But also, the fact that
also ruins the day.
Yeah. And also taxidermy in Santa Cruz is still huge. Like driftwood, driftwood stuff, driftwood art, and taxidermy. Santa Cruz has a lot of that.
There's a line in this that like it took me a couple of times to like have it hit me the right way. But there's a line where the grandpa's walking out and he's like, I'm going to bring this to to the widow Johnson. And he's like, what did you stuff it with, Mr. Johnson? And like that line took me multiple times to hit me.
Yeah.
And oh fuck, that's dark.
That's also, I think, a Creepshow reference, because there's a Creepshow episode where the taxidermist gets taxidermied by his wife because he kills their cat, and she gets her revenge by taxiderming him. So I think that could, but I don't know which came first, that Creepshow episode or that. Because the 80s was such a mix of so much horror and whimsical.
Yeah, which came first, the corpse or the stuffing? Who knows? KT, I think you had a thing you were going to...
I'm trying to just slip in a question for you guys about taxidermy. Do you think that taxidermy is put into this movie because it is a way for us to give life everlasting to dead things?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of
that. I love that take.
I love that take. I think it was put in there just to show the hillbilliness of the grandpa. But I like,
they were like,
presentism. Yeah,
I like KT's take, but the answer is people in the mountains be crazy.
They be crazy. That's a hobby in the mountains. Mountain people love their taxidermy, and I will say it's also a very good side hustle, because people pay good money for deer heads, moose head, elk head, whatever. So, and there's hunting too. There's hunters. That's another thing, is the hunting element. So I wonder if the taxidermy is more about call out to hunting, but I could be wrong.
Like just the like it's already making death present in the story, where it's like, oh, this is the murder capital of the world. There's a whole fucking room full of dead animals of different kinds of these stuff. Like it just kind of puts the aura
and they're
of death
posed alive.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're posed alive, yeah. Well, and I think that's an interesting segue too, because what I was thinking about is how, of the many milestones that this film does, there's a lot of violence on screen on this one, and that was new at the time, and a certain Roger Ebert did not care for it, and specifically called it out. But it I think even then, and Near Dark has some as well. Again, same year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
One did not influence the other. There was definitely a culture of action movies and violence and violent activities and actions. But this is the first time you see it played with vampires, and the first time you really see vampires with special effects. And by special effects, I mean flying all the fuck around the room, which it just wasn't there for a long time. I think it's interesting that they had to use a melange of early digital effects and early practical effects as well. Which again, this is real early on.
That also could be Schumacher too. Was that before or after the? But that's expensive. You said that he got.
Oh, it was well expensive. Yeah,
I didn't know this. So you said the budget got cut. The budget, the chief got cut.
They cut it down by $2 million. So I have a whole bunch of clips that I grabbed. There's a documentary. There's a mini.
Is that the reason why they use the same drone shot over the boardwalk 4 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
lot of the fine shots.
I literally was like, I've seen that before.
And that predates drones. That's not even a drone because that predates drones. So that's a very expensive aerial shot. And those aerial shots
are
true.
A lot of the aerial shot, but it's one shot 4 times.
Yeah.
A lot of the aerial shots in this movie are from Top Gun. Like a lot of them are
reused.
A lot of them are reused.
Directed
shots.
by Tony Scott, director of The Hunger.
Yeah, that's why I include that.
Wait, Forrest. Wait. Are they reused from other movies?
No, Top
Gun.
What?
Yes.
Top Gun.
This is now the third time we've talked about it. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Which shots are the Top Gun shots?
So Top Gun obviously was like the Warner Brothers, so they had a bunch of unused footage that they had taken for Top Gun.
Unused.
Of flying over stuff, right?
Got it.
Okay. The aerial stuff.
So they used a bunch of the aerial footage from Top Gun in this throughout it.
That they hadn't used for Top Gun though, but they had available.
From Top Gun though, they had taken for Top Gun, and then
it was not.
It looks like
it wasn't
a
used.
fighter plane in the clouds.
Okay.
Like you don't see Goose like trying to like shoot down Kiefer Sutherland or anything.
Totally. Yeah, where's that crossover?
I know, right?
No, when they went to the beach volleyball scene, that was not from this.
It makes more sense in this movie than it does in Top Gun.
That would have been perfect. No, this is some of the stuff on the practical effects, including the masks and the. There's a whole 20-minute documentary or something, 25-minute documentary there's a whole like 20-something minute documentary that you can find on YouTube where they talk about.
I'm watching that. Effects. Cool.
Billy Wirth, when he dies death by stereo, built this elaborate body and they charged it where the flames blew up out of his mouth as his head exploded. The other thing was very elaborate was when Brooke got it in the tub and melted. We did variations of, I did his whole face, I did in styrofoam. I had molds, these huge metal molds made and did his face in styrofoam screaming. And we filled a bathtub full of acetone and put the wig on, made them all up. And the tests worked great. I mean, the skin just dissolved and we had the skull underneath that's in the film, so it would all just melt right away to the skull.
It's kind of nice to have done the mechanical way of doing it. Now they can do that CGI and do. But in an odd way, it loses its power, its punch, because you know that, they're just generating this stuff. Nobody's suffering. We were suffering.
Michael Chapman, the cinematographer, really knew how to shoot the makeups, and that doesn't happen often. And boy, he did a beautiful job of shooting them.
The trick of shooting makeup is having really good makeup. Alas, I wish there were another trick. Either that, or if the makeup isn't any good, you don't put much light on them, or you use a lot of diffusion, or whatever you have to do. But the real trick is having really good makeup. If you have really good makeup, you can just treat it as though it were a person, and you shoot it. He happens to be a vampire, or he happens to be a werewolf. But otherwise you shoot him exactly as if he were the guy he was before he was the werewolf.
Joel, knows how to direct a movie like that, and I'm shocked how well it still works. It's just beautiful film still. I'm amazed that at my age now, I'm still working, still getting incredible projects, and that I'm actually still pulling them off pretty good. I don't know where this comes from when I create these things. I do films like The Lost Boys, and then I do Dracula, and I got to do Frankenstein on Van Helsing this year, and I get to do old age makeups, and I just did The White Chicks with the Wayans brothers, which will be hysterical. So every film is completely different. Still today, I'm shocked at how many people, when I say I did The Lost Boys, I love that movie. I'm really happy I got to work on it. It's still one of my...
Will it be hysterical,
Billy Wirth,
though?
when he dies...
White Chicks? Is it really going to be that hysterical? I don't know. Jury's out on that one, son.
But Michael Chapman, the guy that was the DP, he was the guy that did Raging Bull, and he did
Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
So great. The look of this, I think, is at least a quarter of the reason why it's as notable culturally as it is because it looks incredible.
And that's two different. Joel Schumacher is known for being a incredibly aesthetically driven director.
Sure.
So like a lot of the stuff in the practical effects, there's like some crazy ideas, like the motorcycle going around the house, the motorcycle attack.
Yeah.
Is actually he had two of the gaffers run around holding the giant lights, just running around the house to put that effect.
I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me at all. As someone who actually drives a motorcycle, that I just kept being like, you don't know how motorcycles work.
It immediately.
Noise. It's like the exhaust is coming out the lights. It's like the lights are making wind.
Did you make a gas mask for him?
Exactly. Are the motorcycles also vampires?
Yeah. They just didn't have.
Yes, they are.
They just didn't have the budget to like they were trying to do stuff on that.
Well, and they were like, I mean, that's like Sam Raimi did the same sort of thing, right? That like the whole cam, whether you put the board on the camera on the board, and like two people just run with it. I mean,
you know what? Sometimes when you don't have money and you do those things, they end up being a better result sometimes, and sometimes it ends up being what everyone ends up doing eventually because they need to save money in a Roger Corman kind of way because you get $2 million taken out of your budget, and And another thing in this movie that I thought was interesting, and maybe this is an 80s thing, because I just finished watching the Brat Pack documentary on Hulu, which is I highly recommend it. It's great. It talks to all the actors that were kind of called the Brat Pack, but it goes in and talks about, because, John Hughes has passed away. So the actors that were in those John Hughes movies talk about how collaborative he was. And Joel Schumacher was actually incredibly collaborative and open to ideas. That's how they got Jason Patric, because Jason Patric said no to this movie. He was the one person they wanted, and he kept saying no until Joel Schumacher convinced him, you can have some creative input. The minute you tell someone in their 20s that they can have creative input in a movie, Kiefer Sutherland also had a lot of creative input in this movie. So I think that's one of the reasons it works so well, is because you have young people giving their ideas on what young people are like. The minute you have a director or screenwriter who basically says, I know young people, but I
think what the young people want is...
No, you can see it today. You can see it today even when you see older filmmakers trying to make movies with teenagers, and they're like pushing their ideas of what they think teenagers are like. And it's like, no, you let the teenagers give you some input and some creative ideas, because that'll just make it more authentic. That's why Lost Boys is so good, is because yes, it's got all the groundbreaking things we talked about before, but it feels authentic. It feels, even though we know it's not real, if you're a 15-year-old goth girl in the middle of Colorado like me, you think it's real and you want it to to be and you want
to hang out in that world. Like, consequences be damned.
That's why and I loved also the world building where they say every vampire dies a different way.
So
which is
great setup,
right?
Yeah, and that's a great way to like introduce new elements to it, and sort of like not and again that's a one line. You could be seen as a throwaway where it allows creatively, first of all, for the effects department to really like go hog, but like secondly, allows you narratively do something different a few times rather than just have this is it. It's got to be like this, and I think that's key.
Yeah, you get the good kills that you need in a horror movie, and then you get that basic D&D principle of like, okay, so this minion explodes, but there's like a different thing that happens on death for each creature. It's great world building.
Like death by guitar, death by tub, death by stabbing, death by fire, death by antlers. Also, they appear different. So like, Kiefer Sutherland's character, when he dies, you see him at the end, is a young boy on antlers. He's not Kiefer anymore, which is also another interesting element. So I love that.
No, so there's a big part of it though, is that they slashed that money from the budget, and they ended up putting the hog share of money, like the largest share of money, into that final sequence, more than any other part of the movie.
You can tell.
Yeah. So
which is very indicative of movies at this time too. And again, why this was groundbreaking for the vampire genre, but is kind of where larger, I mean, like look at even something like Predator, right? Where it's like most of the money is for when they get through the explosion factory.
Well, it was a template. It was like, you're right, Conan. It was like an 80s action movie template where you have to have at the very end a big kaboom, a big major scene where everything comes together. You can't have like even though this ends on a laugh, right, with the grandfather saying what he says, you still have a good payoff at the end because you're like, holy crap, this is really cool because you see everything that's happening, and they have to do this to save to save the little kid and Jason Patric's character so they don't become full vampires, right? By drinking blood. So
which is another rule establishment, right? That's like, okay, so first of all, I as far as major media goes, it's the first time that the notion of, if you kill the main vampire, like there's some hope of, salvaging the lives of the people that have been the victims of the vampire. That was not something I remember happening before this.
Only if they're half vampires, though, right? It's
right. Only if they're half. Sure. But what I'm saying is, I don't remember anything along those lines. It was sort of like, once you're a vampire, you're like damned for eternity. Like, congratulations, like you live for forever, or you become dust. Right. Yeah. And this is the first time I remember that being not the case. And I think as a narrative function, fantastic. Because first of all, they don't know who the head vampire is. They assume it's Kiefer, right? Because of course he presents as the leader of the group.
It's never the head of a biker gang that's actually the head of anything.
Yeah, it's not going to be the guy who looks like he's your physics teacher. It's not going to be
it's a guy in the tie. Is what it is.
That's hitting on your mom.
That literally says, "Hey, can I come in? You have to invite me in." And he's like, "Yes, you're invited in." It's like that would be the first red flag for me. I'd be like, "No, I'm not gonna
invite him over for dinner." I will say though, Corey's did think that guy was the head vampire, but at the dinner party, they ruined the dinner party. And Dianne Wiest, the mom, was like, "How dare you ruin my chance at love?" And they're like, "Oh,"
but they weren't wrong, which is were they assholes? Yes, but they weren't wrong.
It's great, like third intention attack with like we wind up in the same first line.
Well, Dianne Wiest is so me dodging all the red flags. I was like, her so heavy. She's literally like, "No, he's just a nice guy. He just kind of smells a little bit."
He's quirky.
Like, oh.
I love the line that the grandpa says to her, where he's like, "You're the first woman to ever not benefit from from getting divorced." Yeah.
Wow. Got her ass, Grandpa. Way to go.
But like, there's like a whole thing with like Fuck, I lost it. I had a thing that I was gonna say here, but
can I ask if anybody noticed about the placement of the teeth? Does that feel weird for anyone?
That felt weird.
They're on the same. They're on the. Is it called bicuspid? These things, as opposed to your insides.
They're closer in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was weird.
I remember what it was that I was gonna say. The reason that the Edward Herrmann thing, they didn't know the rules. They didn't know all of the vampire rules. So they assumed that the garlic thing worked. They assumed that water rather than holy water was going to work. Like they clearly weren't prepared with the rules of the vampire clique. They were getting it from DC Comics, which
not even DC, EC. So that's
EC Comics, different letter. Yeah. That's where the Crypt Keeper comes from.
Right? Because that's
like getting your vampire lore off of Wikipedia.
You'd be better off.
I would personally love there to be a version of, not a remake, because I think Lost Boys stands alone as its own, unless we get prequels. But I would love to see a vampire movie where it's kind of similar to Lost Boys, but instead of comics, they're getting it from Reddit. You know what I mean?
I the asshole?
I was gonna say they're getting it from Marvel Comics.
Or TikTok. They're like getting TikTok vampire.
Exactly. They get like short-term vampire lore videos. Sure. We must go to Letterboxd one-liners. We absolutely must. But I would be remiss as a musician to not mention Gerard McMahon's Cry Little Sister as being one of the all-timer melding of movie and song choices, right? I mean,
right?
Yeah. Written for this.
That was such a good sound. First of all, the whole soundtrack's great.
Whole soundtrack bangs.
Second of all, the Little Sister song, that was actually the most popular slow skate and slow dance song of that, like, of my high school. Like, that was a slow dance song that was played at a lot of our dances. But also just the soundtrack was so eclectic and cool. Like, I don't know the story. I don't even know the story behind the soundtrack. Who got to choose what? Was that Schumacher or was that somebody else that chose the songs? Because they're so great. They work with the movie too. They're like,
I don't know
think of it without the movie.
I don't know about all of the songs, but it was Schumacher that went and got the Cry Little Sister.
Right. He asked that its refrain like had a choir. It sort of was
so
the direction.
Good. And people are strange are great. And can I also give a shout out to Dianne Wiest's mom character, because I thought she was a cool mom. The fact that like she's working at like an arcade and the vampires come in and he's doing the guy that's hitting on her is like doing that thing where these kids today, which I don't know why he was trying to pretend like they weren't connected. Okay. But the fact that she's like, I don't know, I think they're just like they just dress better than we did. I thought that was such a sweet thing for a mom to say.
Honestly, respect.
Back then, I mean, I will say this predates Columbine, but like having teenagers wearing dark, long coats and being goth on the boardwalk would have been a weird thing because there's only 2 goths in Santa Cruz right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, I don't know. Yeah, the fact that she was so open.
You're not in tie-dye.
Tie-dye vampires would be a bummer to me. I'm sorry. Peace and love.
Cool mom. Dianne Wiest's character in this was
I love her. I love her. She's so valid.
And also the dog, and also the pet dog was so great in this movie. The husky,
great dog.
That dog trying to protect Corey, trying to like let them know there's vampires floating outside the window. Saying,
that's the day.
Maybe not the best name for a dog of that breed.
Yeah, well, we don't call them Eskimo dogs anymore.
Imagine the like tie-dye vampires being like, "Sorry, man, gotta suck your blood, man. It's not my
sorry, man." Just very Cheech and Chong about it.
Can you take this gummy before I drain you of your blood?
Oh man!
Hey, dude,
all right.
You hit this so I can get it out of the blood out of your system that has the weed in it.
So Letterboxd is a place, a social media site for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the films that they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, maybe the films that they tried to vision boarding themselves into in some weird way through words, I guess, word magic. We all know it's blood magic. Come on. And of course, all this is a bottom-up democracy. Everything is, everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's or Ebert's, who had words to say about this specific movie, I might add. But everybody gets to chime and opine, and it's best expressed succinctly for the purpose of this bit, where the various reviews are collected by yours truly for us to react to on the screen. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for the Lost Boys. Let's go, Forrest. Grandpa's everything. Everything. Grows weed. Has no TV because he's got the TV guide. True. Yeah. Has a penchant for double stuffed Oreos. True. Don't touch his shelf. True. Loves Santa Carla except for all the damn vampires.
No. So by the way, that TV guide thing, my grandfather was the same way. He's like, I got all the things I needed. It was like TV guide was like a spoiler zone. So he's like, that's just where I get my stuff. So I know TV guide doesn't even exist anymore. I don't even know if
they went out of print.
Yeah, like my mom asked for a subscription for Christmas last year. I'm like, I don't think they still have it in print.
They sure don't.
Wow. The cable companies do it now, right? They're like, oh, we'll give you
it's all online.
They have some lame, they have some lame approximation of it, but
you have a digital one when you're like online, but the actual print thing that came out every week that had little interviews in the beginning and little previews, they don't exist anymore. I love those
and they had, and you could tell some of the review writers would have a really good time writing their.
Also, they lied a lot. They lied a lot because that's how I accidentally saw Watership Down at age 6.
Oh no!
Wow.
Anyway, continue.
Next. Damn! I wish I looked that cool on a dirt bike.
Same.
Yeah, even Jesus Patrick is like, oh, I don't know if I keep up. I'm not that good at riding a dirt bike, and they're like, come on, you'll be good. And even he ends up looking fucking cool.
Yeah, he kind of looked like a tool. It's true.
Every single vampire in this could pass as a TikTok e-boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to mention Billy Wirth. I know I mentioned American Gladiator earlier. He actually was one in 1989.
No way.
He's in the American Gladiator documentary that I think is on Netflix. You should watch it.
You can believe it. If someone were to take a quiz of who watched that documentary, they probably would not say me. I did watch it though.
It's great.
It wasn't bad. Yeah.
I follow all the women. I
watched like I don't do that. I watched like 3 different like Criterion Collection like heart-rending like serious movies. I need something that is not this, and I watched the American Gladiators documentary.
It's a great documentary. It's very heartfelt, but the fact that Billy Wirth, who's like the dark-haired hot vampire in this long dark hair, who was also in a Testament heavy metal music video, I stalked this guy for years and years and years. He ended up on Charmed. He was on Charmed for a while. He was on Sex and the City. I love this actor so much, but the fact that he decided to be on American Gladiator with Gladiators. That was a choice.
I like the idea of a vampire that's like, "What's up, TikTok? Here's my new I've gotten a new sponsor, blood capsules or whatever.
It's called True Blood."
Accurate.
Free therapy is turning the film off at 1 hour 9 minutes. So the Lost Boys, especially Marco, live happily ever after.
Wait, why?
I agree.
I don't know why Marco cracked me up that much.
I don't understand. What's the Marco? Explain.
That's one of the vampires.
It's one of the vampires.
Which one's Marco?
He's the long-haired one. The sexy
is he mine? Is he the goth one?
Yeah.
The one you were just chiming about, wasn't it?
I think I'm in denial. That's the thing. I think I skip over that because I don't want to see him die because I'm so in love with him.
What is on forever in our hearts?
Yeah.
What was his death? Do you guys remember how he died?
You know what? I'm sorry. Marco is Alex Winter. My bad.
Okay.
Oh, Marco's not the
say. I don't think. Was it guitar? Is that the Billy Wirth one? Is that how he dies?
Yeah.
Okay. How does Alex Winter die? What is his?
He gets staked in his sleep.
Yeah, he's the first one.
Oh, that's right.
They just stab him when he's upside down.
In the cave.
And everyone else is like, ah.
That was a lot of blood. That scene.
Our vampires are going to look like a one-hit wonder 80s metal band. And we're going to have a sexy sax solo on top of all that. Joel Schumacher.
Also, I would say more than one hit. I would say like they're more like The Damned meets Cinderella.
Yeah, Goth Damned. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, like Dawkin. They're like Dawkin Goth. Goth Dawkin. Danzig.
I can't. Right, exactly. I can't believe I've gone 28 years on God's green earth without witnessing the greatest final line of film ever spoken.
Yes.
No, literally though.
It goes so hard.
That's one thing I could never stand about Santa Clara. All the damn vampires.
And nothing has topped it. That's still my favorite last line of a movie.
It's pretty great. It should be, if you like a top 10 like last line in a movie list. That would be on there for me.
So good.
Being a vampire would be cool, but I could never give up garlic bread.
You don't have to.
You don't have to in this one. Garlic doesn't affect them.
As long as you get invited into the house, you can eat all of their garlic bread.
Yeah.
As long as they invite you into the Olive Garden, you can
They'll be like, "Come on into the Olive Garden. We're inviting you in because you're here with your family."
Your family.
You work in an Olive Garden and you have a vampire that's gonna live forever that knows that they get endless breadsticks, so they're just sitting there for
breadsticks.
So there is,
and instead of marinara, hold up. Instead of marinara, it's blood. Thank you.
And Conan, do you remember in San Francisco the garlic rose? The garlic rose,
of course.
which is a famous, Stinkin' Rose, which is a famous all garlic centric Italian restaurant. They even have garlic ice cream, but they have their murals painted all over the inside of the restaurant. There is a section that has a vampire crying in the corner, and I always ask to be sit next to the vampire every time I went there.
So much.
Stinkin' Rose is great if you like garlic. New York City is great if you like saxophones. Moving on.
I mean, there you go.
Why is there an oiled up man playing the saxophone on my screen?
Why wouldn't there be? Why wouldn't there be?
Put him in everything.
I was gonna say another one. Another oiled up.
It's different.
Why isn't he in all the Schumacher films? Is he in Batman? Did we not look?
He's in Falling Down, actually. It's a minor scene, but
is he
Falling Down? Everybody, no, he's not.
I didn't know he was. Is that the one? That's the one with Michael Douglas. Right?
Where he goes postal, as they used to say. Yes.
Yeah. Wait, and he falls. There's a saxophone scene where he falls.
No, I meant that for purpose of humor only. That is
no, Conan. I would have watched that whole movie trying to find that.
Oh no! I'm falling down. I'm getting back up.
It's like, well, suddenly I still believe. Okay.
So good.
Michael should have started questioning them when they got Chinese takeout and only ordered plain white rice and noodles. I would have been out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no garlic shrimp.
Ordering
That's kinda sus.
biscotti.
Yeah. Pretty boring. The name Michael is said 114 times in this film.
Yes.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's why I think they should replace one vampire with Joe Bluth. Michael.
Hey, Michael. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for The Lost Boys. Please follow the show on our HQ account at Movie Night Extra. We're covering this movie, all the various movies that we cover, various ephemera, short clips, etc., etc. You can join in on all the fun over there on Letterboxd. Eat the bugs, Michael. Always Flacco over there. I'm just going to do it in Joe voice from here forward.
Eat the
bugs, Michael. Where did the lighter fluid come from?
You sound like Batman when you say that.
Well, Will Arnett did play Batman in the Lego Batman, right? There you go.
I was like Joe Bluth as Batman. I'm like, wait, no,
Lego.
that didn't happen.
Lego Batman.
Lego Batman.
Why do you want to kill me, Michael?
I mean,
at Always Flacco, he's covering all the stuff on this show and all the various other films that he's watching.
Well, I've watched 10.
You've been going deep, man.
I've watched and logged 10 vampire movies so far in October.
Yay! Welcome to my world.
Forrest, actually.
Until today, I woke up at a decent time today. It was good. But until today, I flipped my sleep schedule. So I was only awake at night watching vampire movies.
That's me. That's me normally.
Watch out. Anthony Hopkins Van Helsing's going to come in and start giving you the business. The business. Thank you.
The business. Giving you the business.
Giving you the business. I'm at Conan Neutron, the Boardwalk Punk Rock Vamp. I am watching the Highbrow, the Populous Fair, all of the various things. Criterion Challenge. I think I'm down to 6 at this point. So, follow me along for that.
Wait, what are the 6?
Oh boy, that's longer than we have right now for this bit. I can tell you though, but they're all good. I'm excited about all of them. It's just a matter of fitting that in with this and also
the Criterion. It's the Criterion Challenge, Michael.
It's a Criterion Challenge, Michael. You wouldn't understand it. But follow me along for all that at Conan Neutron, of course. KT at Movie Runtime over there. That's right. She says she's snacking on those ice cream sandwiches the grandpa hid away, and also logging all this lovely stuff on her TikTok channel, cross-posting over to Letterboxd, engaging, enraging, all the stuff over there, as one does. Lauren Chouinard, one of my very first Letterboxd friends. Yay! Lonely Goat Herd, president of the Santa Carla Tourism Board, one of my favorite people.
Don't say the murder capital. It's not that.
It's not the
I work in PR, guys.
It's not the murder capital anymore. That's totally in Ohio now. It's Youngstown.
Sexy vampire capital. That's what it should be called. Sexy vampire.
I did play a show in Youngstown, Ohio once, and a bunch of drunk dudes were bragging about how they're the murder capital of the USA. I'm like, great.
Cool.
Very cool.
We're number 1, USA.
You know what I said? To my credit,
the murder capital of the world is Colima, Mexico. The top 10 murder capitals of the world are in Mexico.
Yay!
It's Port-au-Prince. That it's South Africa. It's Baltimore if you want to go for the United States. New Orleans, Minneapolis, and then Philadelphia.
Woo!
What I did. First of all, this is a while ago. Secondly, what I said was, well, it's good to be number 1 in something.
Oh, so positive.
Let's hit it with the plugs, Forrest. Let's go.
Oh wait, are you not going to say thank you to me?
I am going to, but you don't have a letterbox to get. This is just a letterbox bit. This is letterbox.
I'm the Jason Patric in this group. That's not.
Yeah, we're the biker gang. You have to follow us and prove your worth.
But I'm one of the Frog Brothers.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts. We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra where we're putting up short-form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
Chat pile, but we're going to go to Lauren first because you got a hard out. Lauren,
I love Chat Pile.
Those are my buds, and they were on Protonic this week.
Everybody should listen because Chat Pile's great, and so is Conan. Yes.
But Lauren, you got to go to SpongeBob.
I do. I have to go to SpongeBob the Musical Rehearsal, which, if you want to come to Santa Cruz, then you can actually come see me. I'm playing the French narrator, and I'm a Foley artist. I make all of the sound effects in the show. And none of it's digital. It's a lot of slide whistles. So if you want to come and see it, show runs all of November. So you can get tickets if you search Cabrillo.
It's in the description.
Hit the description of the show and.
Wait, is this? I'm sorry, is this at Cabrillo College? Because I went to community college there when I lived in Santa Cruz to learn hydroponics. I learned how to grow pot. I love Cabrillo. It's got the best horticulture program.
It does, and it's got a great theater program. It's got a great theater. It's beautiful. We've got like Broadway quality technology. So this is not going to be a low budge SpongeBob. This is going to be a high production value SpongeBob, and you all should come and see it. And then and follow me on Letterboxd at Lonely Goat Herd, and you can add me on Instagram at Suburb Survivor, and let's talk movies all the time.
Yeah. All right. So right there in the description, there's the link and everything.
Yes. Come see, please.
So like I mentioned, Chat Pile on this week's Protonic. I'm gonna have C. Moriarty of the Gits, who also did the Mia Zapata book on this weekend. So that's next coming up. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be good. We just played Detroit. Us being Conan Neutron's Secret Friends. It was great. Next tour dates: Columbus, Louisville, St. Paul, and Chicago with Dead Bob, God Bullies alternatively, and then Dead Bob and Lung for Conan Neutron the Secret Friends. And I think that is it. KT, you would be next in rotation for the plugs.
Yes, I actually had, because of delays in processing, I had my first ever YouTube video for What If I Don't Like It premiered while we were talking just now, and I did not intend for it to happen, guys. There's only been one person watching.
Counter-programming.
It's not intended to be watched live. It's fine. We'll watch it after the fact.
Watch it later.
I did an hour-long video with my face talking to you, and there's all editing done, just kind of introducing the idea of the show to YouTube video for people, and just talking to myself about Over the Garden Wall and why I had not originally chosen to see it. Then how much, because it's got singing, it's got kids stuff, it's got 12-minute episodes. There's so many things about this that did not seem like something I would like. And then when I tried it, did I wind up liking it? Spoiler, I very much liked it. And so this is just a format introduction. That episode just came out. And then also
hot off the presses.
Yesterday, Alexis of Trashwire and I talked about Substance. It was so good.
I love that movie. I
really want to watch The Substance, but I really want to watch you guys' conversation. But I haven't seen The Substance yet, so I don't want to be spoiled.
Or you gotta go in blind.
We're going to cover it on this very show, but it's the end of next month. So everyone's going to be old. At that point. See what I did there? See what I did there? Right? Yes?
Right.
Wheels within wheels, people.
It's very spoiler heavy. So, like Forrest said,
You gotta get
if
somebody to
haven't
go
seen
in for
Substance,
you. You
don't.
gotta get someone to go in for you that's young. That's the
All right.
Yes.
What?
So, if you have seen Substance and you want to talk about it, you want to have somebody kind of talk about the concepts, the themes. I talk a little bit about how it's made. There's some really interesting stuff with Foley. Lauren, I think you would be very interested.
Yeah.
Only an hour long, real quick, in and out. It was such a great conversation. I completely forgot that it was recorded. I thought I was just talking to my friend. Like,
Aw.
joy, just a joy.
Lauren is a new Michael Winslow.
I
There you go.
sure
That's-
am. guys.
He was the fellow from the police academy, right? That did all the noises. Okay.
Reginald Bell Johnson. He went to my high school. We tried to get the theater named after him.
Amazing.
Speaking of which, guys, I'm hopping off so I can go do my little slide whistling. But I love y'all. I had so much fun.
All right, thanks for
Until next time. See you, Lauren.
I'm glad we could bond on Santa Cruz, and I have a big crush on him. So
Oh my God, yes.
Aw, adorbs.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, Lauren.
Bye.
Anything else, KT? By the way, I have seen The Substance, and I thought that was a great episode. So
Thank you. And we're gonna try and get Alexis on this show too as well soon, so that'll be really nice.
looks like they do RRR in January.
Yes.
Breaking news to people on the show.
No one with a certain age group is gonna know what that beep 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 breaking noise sounds.
Fair.
Sadly, I got it. It's just like
Yeah.
the record scratch, right? Until
Yeah.
records became cool again, no one was like, "What's that?"
I bet you're wondering how I got in this situation. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very specifically Morse code.
Yeah.
or the sound of a modem. One of my nieces had that as a ringtone, and she didn't know it was a modem. She didn't know it was a modem. She just thought it was a cool sound. I'm like, "Why is your modem your ringtone?" She's like, "What's a modem?" Modem.
That just meant I was going to spend about 20 minutes trying to download a tit.
Oh.
Come on. I'm not horny anymore.
Tit, everybody. The punchline of
I
that
got
was
it.
tit. Yeah.
I
was
got
good.
it.
50, screaming 9600 baud modem. Yeah.
Movie night extravaganza brought to you by Tit.
Just the one.
Just the one.
You gotta start somewhere, okay?
Guys, we have one. It's a unitit. You've heard of the Unabomber. This is a unitit.
You guys get us to 5,000 subscribers. We can talk about getting.
Yeah, we'll talk about extras.
Yeah, there you go.
You want us to be like Johnson?
All right. Anything else, KT, other than maybe
Please
some
follow
strong
me
reservations
on
about joining the show?
Yeah, just follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. I'm about 15 people shy of 3,000 on TikTok. It's an arbitrary number, which would be super fun. So follow me there. And that's it. I'm done.
I would try to repost all your TikToks, Katie, on my TikTok. But I don't know if that's
Hell
helpful.
yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I try.
It helps my
Also,
morale.
You also look like a still from a Wes Anderson movie right now. I don't know if
Oh,
that's
with the wallpaper,
wallpaper
sure.
and how
Yeah.
cute you are, but you look like a cool like movie still from a Wes Anderson film.
That's right.
Just want to have a fake hand and give that monologue from Moonstruck.
Or from Royal Tenenbaums.
He has a hand. He has a wife.
Or from Royal Tenenbaums because she also Gwyneth Paltrow has a fake hand in that movie.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or there's like, can we get Jason Schwartzman in there? Can we fit him in? Or
Yes, you are totally allowed to send him over here if you need to.
Wes,
For
come on,
research.
let's go.
Yeah.
For research.
Can we get Owen Wilson in there and go, wow.
Wow.
Oh, here's the supercut. Owen Wilson, wow, versus Michael.
Wow.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
It's like dueling banjos.
You forgot to have Lauren do final thought.
She had to go. She had to go. That's what happens. The late start.
You had to go to the Goo Lagoon.
So Bonnie, I believe it is. KT, do you have anything else? Where's that?
Nope.
Okay, so Bonnie, it's your plugs, and then you can go and do final thoughts after that.
What I got to plug? Night Shift, which is my horror film podcast that I do with also a friend of this podcast, Renee Ruin, and actress and psychologist Jenna Hayes. We do a show called The Night Shift where we review female-led or strong female character horror films or horror films written or directed by women. And we are going to do, for our best final girl, Nightmare on Elm Street. We're going to review that. We tend to just, where all three of us are very ADHD and very passionate about horror films. So it should be a good discussion. And I'm excited because that movie I saw at a slumber party and it gave me nightmares. And I was addicted to it because I thought it was I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. This is awesome.
The documentary Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to sleep or you'll go crazy. So, of course, having a killer kill you in your sleep is awesome. In your dreams, it's great. So I love this movie. So I'll be reviewing that. At some point, either at the end of this month or beginning of November, I'll be, I do a book club show on Twitch with Felicia Day called Felicitations Book Club. And we read Jenny Lawson's first book, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, and it also has this creature on the cover of her book. So good tie-in for vampire taxidermy mouse. Anyway, so I'm doing those two things. And then you can always find me on social media as Bonnie Girl, or you just click on my link tree and you'll find where I'm at. But yeah, and also I have a bunch of games out. Oh, and I have a new comic. I have a new comic out.
Oh.
When I was young, and it's a comic that's an anthology comic of queer writers and artists. And we talk about, we all talk about our high school stories and stuff. So mine is like a kind of a story about a craft. It's like Craft meets John Waters. It's like, it's like me trying to find my queers in high school. And I have a character who, instead of clairvoyant, she's queervoyant. So it's a fun little comic, and all the proceeds of the comic go to the Trevor Project. So, which is a very worthy charity. So so it just came out. So you should be able to find it most places. I'll put a link somewhere on Linktree so you can find it there. But yeah, the comic just came out.
And also, you're going to be on this very show on Friday with your fellow night shifter doing What We Do in the Shadows coming up.
Yeah, which is, I consider a documentary. I don't consider
What We Do in the Shadows
at all. Those are real vampires that we've just captured in documentary form. So that's not fiction to me. That's real.
that should be a blast because that's a fun movie. I'm sure we will probably mention the show at least once.
I mean, it's a great show. Like it's
a fucking fantastic show. Yeah, it's great.
It's the last season. Oh, wait, are we reviewing the movie or the TV show?
We're doing the movie.
Oh.
It's
okay.
It's my polite, somewhat passive aggressive razzing the fact that sometimes we can veer off topic when there's associated media. Certain people more than others. So.
But it is the last season of the TV
It makes
show.
sense. They're canonically attached. So
yeah. There you go.
Fine.
Okay. The end.
So final thoughts on The Lost Boys? You hear this movie, Bonnie? You ever heard of it? You heard of this, Paul?
Final thoughts. It's hard to have a final thought when there's so many thoughts that I have about this movie, but I will say it is the best vampire movie. If you haven't seen it, it's the best vampire movie, I think, that encapsulates the 80s, encapsulates Santa Cruz, encapsulates wanting to hang out with cool kids and having to prove your worth only to find out that the cool kids are mean. And maybe that's not great. And also pay attention to your elders, because your grandfather probably knows shit that's going to save your life. You just didn't ask him the right question. So,
to be fair, they never asked. You're right.
Any of you who still have grandparents alive, maybe tonight call them and say, hey, did you anything else you want to tell me that maybe has to do with vampires? This is a safety guard. Just ask. Yeah. But yeah, no, this movie is a great.
In fact, let's not limit to vampires. Any other Universal monsters?
Yeah,
or anything,
and it also
Gremlins. What do we got?
And it also made playing the saxophone shirtless a thing. So that's my final thought.
Fantastic.
It was never. No one ever thought to do it.
I mean,
it's groundbreaking in its way.
Who knew?
Nobody knew if they believed or not before that.
Now they do.
Now they do.
Yes,
yes, she does.
Do you have final thoughts?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I fugued out for a second. I do. I think that this movie is really unique in a way that it is totally unifying. Like, I used to work a job with this guy who was 20 years older than I was, and he worked in the army, and we just didn't have anything in common besides the fact that we worked in the same place. And then one day I caught him jamming out to that song and pretending to be the saxophone player, and I realized we had this like common ground, and we got to talking about the films, and we couldn't stop talking about films, and it just bloomed out of that. And it comes from a genuine realness that this film has, probably because Donner had the kids be so young that they were giving such genuine teen energy to it that it comes through. And there are things about it that feel like facts. Like, I grew up thinking Batman number 14 was rare. It's not. It isn't. I want it to be. I do so very much. I want Santa Cruz to be the murder capital of the world and not just something that was so cool that news guy said. It feels real. And so this makes you want to feel like vampires are real. And that is such a strange feeling from a movie like that's about vampire kids. But it's like that Goonies whimsy that makes it so much more than just a bunch of kids find treasure.
Yeah. I
Amen.
completely agree. Conan, final thought.
Yeah, well, I think this is certainly one of the coolest looking vampire movies of all time. And it was some degree of blame or credit to The Hunger for that. I think it also makes being a vampire one of the most longingly aspirational things ever for somebody who's a young person. So take of that what you will. But it did it better than, in my opinion, than later franchises. And again, added bonus and not aging, right? You get to hang out with your friends and do cool vampire stuff at night. Great. It's effortless cool. It hits right in the limbic system. The fact that this takes place in a beachfront California town instead of a aging Victorian opulent mansion or something along those lines, very unique, especially because it isn't cold and inhospitable, but there is that kind of dark underside of the sunny boardwalk, the part that seems like there's something ominous or degenerate happening. This does a great job of showing that, and it's very unique because of that. It brought in big action to the vampire genre, and I think we've seen that many times since, but this is one of the first vampire movies in the mainstream-ish to do it. Cry Little Sister, amazing Hall of Fame song and movie working together. I will say the plot itself, not exactly a masterpiece, but nothing to be ashamed of. Great dramatic tension with moments of not taking things too seriously. And I actually do... I didn't answer my own question. I didn't see this until much later in life, so I don't have the nostalgia for it that some do. So I wouldn't say it's a horror classic level, but it's very, very good and completely undeniably cool. And a very enjoyable watch that I think is remembered well by history for good reason. And I'm glad we were able to fit it in, because I think it would be disingenuous to not include it, frankly.
Yeah. There's something like funny about, I was thinking about like the term like cult classic or whatever. And it's like, is something a cult classic like if it was popular at the time and is so popular?
It was so popular. It was like in my high school was. It was like everyone.
I was reading like the Wikipedia thing and like, you know, like and other sources like it has become a cult classic. It's like, I don't know if that's what cult classic means. Like, this movie was popular then and it's popular now. And
yeah,
it's
like Point Break. Yeah.
Right.
It's always good.
Cult classic Point Break that also happened to, gigantic.
Made tons of money, cult classic.
Yeah, it's cult classic. Exactly.
You know, cult classic.
The cult of money.
They keep bringing. Well, it's the 80s.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about what we do in the shadows on Friday. We'll be back for that. So, you know, double bonus content this week or whatever, you know.
It's like Bonnie's already been jumped into the gang, apparently, because she's hanging with us.
When Conan pitched it, he's like, we're doing Vampire Month. I'm like, count me in for everything. So
he's like, I'm in. I don't know which one.
The fact that I've only done this, The Hunger, and I'm doing one more, and not all. I didn't bully.
It shows your restraint. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I would have, but also, like, you know, you could do other vampire movies other times. So, you know.
Sure. No, it's good. We love having you. It's great. It's good fun.
But, and also, if you ever do communion with, I think I mentioned that in The Hunger. I want to see that with you guys, because I think you would love that, because that is crazy.
I'm not sure if I've seen it. I remember it coming out, but it's one of those ones that, like, did I see that? And, like, I don't
think a lot of people saw it in the theater. And I don't know.
Christopher Walken, right?
Yeah, it's Christopher Walken as is Walkenist. Like it is crazy.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken. It's like, think of Nick Cage as craziest Nick Cage movie. This is the craziest Christopher Walken movie. And when you watch it, you'll be like, was there even a script? Like, what's happening?
They're just vibing.
What is happening? And then also when you see the aliens, you're like, is this real? What is happening? So you're just, I love telling people to see it because it is crazy town. And so if you ever want a crazy town movie, pick that one.
We do. I mean, look, one of our most popular episodes is Possession. That's about as crazy town as it gets.
That's a crazy. Yeah, that literally is crazy town. Yeah, there you go.
Did you just have that ready? Amazing. Who are you, me?
I'm literally have my finger over because I was gonna make
Isabella, Johnny, go.
I was gonna make the joke that you could replace the vampires in this with the Fire Gang.
Oh, there you go. Good. Also good. Yes, very good.
Do we need the monkey putting the hat?
Yeah, exactly.
It's also very Star Wars holiday special hologram dancers kind of look to it. So yeah,
there's vampires in this town. This is reaction. Oh my god! I had no idea.
You should have pulled that out for the hunger. Why not?
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're back on Friday.
Let's go back and redo it.
Look out for us on Friday. We're coming. We're ready to bite your necks. And yeah.